what to eat in Vietnam, this and more in this upcoming video. Hey, what's up guys, this is Marcel with a new video here on my channel. But before we start, I have a good update for you concerning the 3 months multiple entry visa. I just read the news that the relevant amendments have been submitted to the National Assembly in Vietnam, and the members of the Assembly are going to discuss this amendment on June 2nd, which is, I believe, this week Friday. And they're gonna vote on it on June 24. So if everything is going well, perhaps by the month of July, they will start to issue the 3 months multiple entry visa. Of course, I don't know, we don't know. Vietnam is actually very slow with this process, but this is the latest update, and it's actually good news because one can see some progress here. But I want to talk about food in Vietnam, Vietnamese food, Asian food. I want to share my experience here, and especially for people who are traveling the first time to Vietnam or to Southeast Asia. Just want to give you a little bit of context in my experience. The very first time when I traveled to Southeast Asia, that was in 2005. That is about almost 20 years ago. And I was traveling to New Zealand at the time, but I chose to make a stopover in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. And I remember staying there for 2 or 3 nights just to relax and, you know, not doing this entire trip from Germany down to New Zealand, which is about a 24-hour trip. Anyway, so I arrived in the middle of the night in Kuala Lumpur. I went to my budget hotel, slept, woke up the next morning. I was hungry. I was going down the street and checking out some food joints and places where I could possibly take my meal. And being the first time in Southeast Asia, and also staying in KL in Kuala Lumpur, actually I was staying in Chinatown. So this is really a mega authentic place to stay if you are really after the local culture. But at the time I didn't know it. Everything looked like dirty and shabby. Also the food places, the street food stalls and the street restaurants, they looked so dirty in my opinion at the time. And I saw how they prepared the food. It was 30 degrees Celsius outside in February. It was hot, it was humid. There was no cooling facilities. I remember one old lady washing their dishes on the floor. Yeah, sitting on the floor, and the tub with the dirty dishwater was sitting there on the floor, and she was washing the dishes. I was so disgusted. I was shocked, and I said, I will not try this food because I want to get it. I want to get out of KL alive, and I want to arrive alive in New Zealand, right, in one piece, and not get some food poisoning or something. So I ended up basically eating McDonald's for 3 consecutive days. That's just a funny story in my first food experience in Southeast Asia. Fast forward to today, or my time in Vietnam. I have great news to share, of course. Yeah, Asian food, and also particularly Vietnamese food, is very nice. It's very rich. It's very diverse. Obviously, I believe that Vietnamese food is influenced by Chinese food, but perhaps also by Thai food and the surrounding countries. Being a chef myself and having worked in Vietnam for a certain period of time, of course, I'm naturally interested in food, and I worked with Vietnamese chefs, so I gotten to know their food culture, their cuisine, their specific dishes, their favorite dishes. And in my opinion, overall, I would say that Vietnamese is healthy food. When you look at the entire variety, it uses a lot of vegetables and it's fresh. A lot of fresh cooking is involved, definitely. And you must, of course, try the Vietnamese food when you come to Vietnam. I know there are some Westerners, or there are these Westerners who categorically say, no, I don't want to try this food. I just stick to my Western diet. So eating that would mean eating fast food and eating pizzas and all that stuff, you know. But this should not be the reason to travel to Southeast Asia to skip the food. You will enter a completely new universe, because it is a different culture, yes, but also there are different ingredients and different herbs, different spices. Yes, they do use chicken and fish and pork and beef, but the cooking techniques are different, you know, the utensils they use and everything. It's just very interesting to watch and see how they actually prepare it when you watch these, for example, street food vendors. So this is my biggest recommendation to you. Try the seafood try the street food. We're gonna talk about the seafood in a minute. Try the street food in Vietnam. Yeah. This video is not a food guide. If you want me to do a food guide with specific dishes, or if you want me to recommend certain restaurants or street food joints in Vietnam, then I can do that. But this video serves as a general context giver, so to speak. So the street food in Vietnam is great. It's cheap. Yeah. This is also one main reason you should try it, because you save a lot of money. There are plenty of street food vendors, street food stalls, street food barbecues, street food restaurants also. Yeah. These very local, authentic, small little restaurants which you can find on any road, on any street in Vietnam. I consider them the street food restaurants. But you also have a lot of street food stalls, you know, single vendors, mostly elderly people who are selling, I don't know, fried bananas, soups, fried noodles, fried rice, any kind of snacks which I'm not able to name here, because I was not able to remember all the names of the dishes and stuff. Yeah, but there's plenty for you to try. You can save a lot of money. On the other side, of course, you have big shopping malls, especially in the big cities like Ho Chi Minh and Hanoi. But also in Da Nang and Nha Trang, we have shopping malls, and you can find also Western restaurants or Western food in these malls. I remember being in Ho Chi Minh City or in Saigon, visiting some of these malls. They are complete westernized malls. Yeah, the same stuff you find in any European or American city, with all these fancy, expensive shops and stuff. But also you have a lot of restaurants. But what is the favorite of the Vietnamese people is certainly the Korean food is very popular. You find a lot of Korean restaurants, Korean barbecue. This is something you have to try also, and this is a completely different experience. And I suggest that you take one Vietnamese friend with you or a colleague who can explain this whole Korean barbecue thing, because I was not familiar and I'm still not really familiar. If I go by myself, I would have the waiter to explain me the whole story, because you will find out you have to have some knowledge how to operate this whole table thing and setup and stuff like that. But Vietnamese people love it, and also sushi is famous. You have sushi bars and all kinds of Asian restaurants. But of course you have pizza joints, you have McDonald's, you have Burger King, and this kind of stuff is available in Vietnam, in these big cities, yeah. And but they are expensive. And anyway, when you go to shopping malls, you pay more money than you would on the streets. And I believe also Vietnamese people, actually some of them, they fancy themselves going into these Western restaurants, because it's kind of showing off, you know, and showing that you have a little bit more income. There are a lot of freestanding restaurants dishing out local food, Vietnamese food, but also you have, especially in the big cities, a lot of freestanding Western restaurants. And I would say that most of them serve Italian food and French food. This is what I was told also, that especially in the big city, Italian restaurants and French restaurants are well known for their food. That's why there's also high demand for French and Italian chefs at the moment. And their food is popular, pasta, pizza, and other stuff. You can also go and visit 5-star hotels. We also can have and enjoy Western food, but you pay way more money than at other places, because when you go to the JW Marriott or to the Hyatt or to the Pullman Hotel, you pay for the name, right? And if you are smart, you don't want to do that. The best food you can really find on the road, on the street, because it is freshly prepared. It's made with love also, and it is it's freshly cooked. It's not lying around, standing around. Also, one advice comes to my mind: visit the places with high turnover. That means places which are busy. Usually, that is when places are busy, that means that there is a high turnover of guests. That means also the food which is being prepared in the kitchen is being sold fast, so it's not sitting around too long. I'm a chef myself. I know how the back of the office can look like. I know about the hygiene conditions in some kitchens, not only in Vietnam, but in general worldwide. Hygiene is a big factor, and by working myself in the hospitality industry for 30 years, I can tell you that this can be a tricky thing. So you want to visit, especially in Asia, especially when you are coming for the first time, and especially if you have some sensitivities or things like that, then when you want to eat street food, visit these places where there are many people sitting around, where there's a high guest turnover. That the high guest turnover ensures that also the food in the kitchen will be turned over very quickly, and the chefs have to prepare it freshly all day long. And this is my advice. So when you visit these seaside cities like Da Nang or Nha Trang, which I, by the way, highly recommend, then of course you need to try the seafood. There's a lot of seafood available in Vietnam naturally, especially by the cities who are located near the East Sea, right? There are plenty of seafood restaurants. I especially remember Da Nang. There are a lot of huge seafood restaurants actually directly located near the beach, where they showcase their lobsters and seafood and fish, in these aquariums. There are some restaurants that are so big, they have dozens of different aquariums where you can actually look at this seafood and the fish, and you can purchase it and then they cook it fresh for you. This is a great experience. It is more expensive than traditional or ordinary street food, yes. And of course, these restaurant owners, they want to make some bucks, some money with the foreigners. So it is expensive compared to other food. But when you compare it to, let's say, to American restaurants in the United States or European restaurants located in Europe, I think you will still make a great bargain. I don't know if you can make a great bargain, but it's going to be cheaper, definitely. But the big advantage is that the seafood there is fresh, because these fishermen, they're catching it every day. You can also watch this and see this every day, and so you cannot get it fresher than in these seafood restaurants. I already mentioned health and hygiene. For me, now living in Southeast Asia for a very long time, or at least frequently visiting this area, my stomach seems to be used to these different spices and herbs and also other things. Of course, there are Western travelers, especially the ones who travel the very first time to Southeast Asia. And it doesn't matter if you travel to Vietnam or to Thailand or to Indonesia. I would suggest and advise that you are careful, and if you do not trust the food, then don't eat it, okay? Also, your stomach needs to get used to it, and there are certain bacteria also around in certain foods in this area because it's more humid, which maybe the Western stomach cannot really literally stomach, and then it can lead to feelings of uncomfortability or maybe to diarrhea or vomiting, this can happen. So you need to know yourself. This is the thing in Western Europe or Western food. There's so much chemistry inside these processed food, and also the restaurants in Europe by nature, they are in a better hygienic condition, which is good. We need that, we want that, it's very important. But on the other side, Western stomachs are not used to, let's say, certain bacteria, so that's why their reaction is so sensitive. But when you stay for a certain while and you always eat the street food, for example, your body gets used to it or should get used to it. And I can tell you from my experience now, being in Southeast Asia for now 18 years altogether, I had only once experienced a food poisoning, I would say. But that happened actually in one of my hotels I worked. We had a staff canteen there, and we had a staff canteen team, a kitchen team. And I remember one day, that was in Malaysia, I had dinner there, and I ate some sambal vegetables, some spicy vegetables. Actually, it wasn't spicy, but tasted great, when I ate it. But a few hours later, I started to vomit, and I don't know what it was. I consider it a kind of a food poisoning. Normally, real food poisoning happens between 24 and 48 hours after you have consumed the meal. Most people think, because real food poisoning can be really, really serious. It can be life-threatening. What most people confuse is just maybe an upset stomach or something like that. And this is what happened to me. I also said food poisoning, but anyway, I had a very upset stomach. I was vomiting a lot. I couldn't sleep the entire night because I had a lot of pain in my stomach. But that was the only time I really experienced something that bad. Other than that, I do not remember having had any real serious issues. And I eat a lot of street food, when I'm in Vietnam or in other countries. The food is tasty, the food is cheap, it's freshly prepared. And I also usually only eat cooked food. This is also something to keep in mind. Be careful with the raw items. If you want to try sashimi and sushi, then I suggest that you don't buy it from the streets. Go to a restaurant, because there you can expect a higher degree of hygiene and food safety. Okay, this is what I recommend. But everything what is boiled and deep fried and cooked, these kind of stuff you can actually eat from the streets. There will be no issues. And as I said, it's not a food guide, but dishes you should definitely try is the pho, which is this traditional Vietnamese soup. They cook it with beef and with chicken. Then there are all these gom shops or com shops, these rice shops where you can find plenty of different rice dishes, And there's this banh mi, which is this baguette. I think this is a French influence. This is very yummy and tasty, very cheap. You can buy this for like $1 on the street. Plenty of street vendors who are preparing this, especially in the morning. I think this is a morning snack. Of course, noodles in any kind and any sort, fried noodles. And the Vietnamese spring rolls are very famous. Some of you might know that even in Western restaurants, in Western countries, you have sometimes Vietnamese spring rolls on the menu, and they come either fried or just not fried. And of course, Vietnam is a diverse country. Every region has its own delicacies or specialties. Remembering being in Phu Quoc on this little island in the Gulf of Thailand last year, there I remember seeing some posters where they advertised barbecued dog meat. Okay, this is something which you still can find in Vietnam, I assume, especially in the rural places. But I think dog meat is becoming less and less popular even among the Vietnamese, but you can still find it. Yeah, I know it's not everybody's cup of tea. It's also not my cup of tea. I never tried it and I will never do. But I remember, for example, 13 years ago when I worked in Hanoi, we were driving around the city, and when you come to the outskirts of Hanoi, I saw these street vendors with these, it looked like a pig on the spit, you know. And I asked the taxi driver, wow, they sell barbecue pork over there? He said, no, that's dog, you know, and there were plenty of dog, you know, already roasted. And I was like, oh my God, you know, disgusting. But anyway, Vietnamese food is great. It's tasty, it's fresh. They use a lot of vegetables. And it's not spicy food in general. It's not like in Thailand. Thailand is more spicy. Indonesian food is, or can be, way more spicy than Vietnamese food. Vietnamese food is very, very moderate in taste. If you cannot eat spicy, then go ahead and enjoy the food. I'm looking forward because I'm gonna be in Vietnam in 2 weeks from now. I will arrive. I'm looking so much forward to be back again. And yeah, that's it for today. Thanks for watching this video. I think I covered everything you need to know if you want to visit Vietnam and want to try some of the food over there. Let me know what you think. Share your comments in the comment sections, and I'm gonna see you soon in one of my next videos. Take care. Bye bye.